The Department of Trade, Industry and Competition remains a major driver of government's localization strategy, which aims to boost production and emerging businesses. But experts and business executives alike are warning that cheap imports of steel and cement, including duties, could have the opposite effect. Our business reporter Ntokozo Khumalo has more.
Well, government stakeholders and big business have really been driving the localization agenda, but business owners in the built environment space argue that cheap imports threaten that localization drive as well as local production. And for a little bit more detail around that, I am now joined by Ntokozo Khumalo, who is the CEO of SA Profiling, a business that is in the steel manufacturing business. Thank you for talking to us. Now, we've heard how those cheap imports affect the cement sector of the built environment, but talk us through what is happening within the steel industry.
Well, one has to be very careful on the localization policy, because if it's misunderstood, then it can have the exact opposite effect. For instance, in the steel industry, what basically happens if you protect large raw material producers, it has a cost implication for the product itself. So what happened in the steel industry, for instance, is from 2015 onwards and up until now in February, they started introducing duties to protect the local flat steel producer, namely AMSA. And that has made the raw material for us as manufacturers more expensive. And we started losing our competitiveness, especially on the export market to sub-Saharan Africa. So it is actually the opposite effect, because what happens now is our businesses, the smaller businesses where the real employment lies, actually start losing jobs. And with losing jobs and not creating jobs, becoming less competitive, the producer of the raw material, his volume shrinks and his product becomes even more expensive, and you introduce even more duties, like what happened in February this year. There was additional duties introduced on steel, which now nearly takes it on certain products up to 50%. So we can't compete. We lost our export markets, and the manufacturing industry has shrunk quite substantially over the past years, especially since 2015 when the duties were introduced. So what we say is we need access to cost competitive raw material from abroad. Whether it's from China or any other of the continents, it is available. And we get those products, we can produce cheaper products, and we can localize production in that manner, but not at the primary level. Because if the input cost is too high, then the output cost is uncompetitive and the business shrinks. And that is what has been happening.
And how does that, Ntokozo, then have, that trickle-down effect on just those infrastructure development projects that we keep hearing about? And we heard, Public Works and Infrastructure, the ministry there, committing 100 billion over the next 5 years. But if these are the kind of challenges that businesses are facing, what is that trickle-down effect, even going forward, for even those jobs that have been lost, and the ability to create new jobs?
The same principle actually applies, because if, like in our industry, in the steel industry for instance, you make the steel more expensive, you can build less bridges, you can build less roads, and at the end of the day, who pays for it? It's the consumer that actually pays to prop up insufficient large corporations which do not have modern technology anymore. Because in the steel industry in particular, modern technology is what have basically advanced steel products. And in South Africa, our environment does not facilitate investment by the primary producer, which is AMSA. And at the end of the day, we sit with low technology, expensive products, and the infrastructure program will just be smaller.
Thenius, thank you for just setting the scene for us on this very important conversation. Of course, that's Thenius Juvenal, who is the CEO for SAS Profiling, a business that is out in Brits and focusing on the steel manufacturing.